In the late fall of 2017, I had just moved back to my hometown of Las Vegas after spending a year teaching set design at UT Austin. It had been a very rewarding experience, but it hadn't left much time for socializing, so by the time I got back home to Vegas, it had been exactly 26 months since I'd so much as held a guy's hand. I was fine not dating in Austin. It was a temporary stay, and I quite literally had a job to do, so aside from a few casual flirtations, I remained professional and stayed focused on my work. But then, not long after getting back to Vegas, I started to feel the pangs of loneliness setting in, and once I mentioned that to a friend of mine, she recommended that I download Tinder. I downloaded the app, made myself a profile, and within just a few days, had a date lined up with a guy I actually really liked, a guy that we'll call Mark. He seemed to occupy that happy medium between hot and nerdy, and since he was the perfect gentleman on our first date, he made it very easy to accept his invitation to a second date. One thing led to another, and we ended up dating for a couple of months. Then, when the time seemed right, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I happily accepted. On the surface, this might all seem totally normal, right? Girl meets boy, girl dates boy, girl becomes girlfriend. Like, where's the weird, creepy part? Well, by that 10-week mark, when he asked me to be his girlfriend, Mark and I had kissed a grand total of about 5 or 6 times. There had been no making out, no heavy petting, and most certainly no sleeping together. I just thought that he was being very gentlemanly at first, and I've never been great at asking to be intimate, so to me, it seemed like when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Neither of us was going to budge, and in the end, it was me that brought it up first. It was the same weekend he asked me to be his girlfriend when I decided to bring up the possibility of us being intimate together in the near future. I communicated to him that it was something that I wanted, and made sure that it was something he wanted too. Then, when I asked if there was anything he'd like me to do, he seemed to think for a moment, and then hesitated when he tried to speak his mind. I asked him to finish the thought and made it clear that he was in a safe space that was completely judgment-free. He once again attempted to communicate with me, but seemed to fall at the final hurdle without actually airing his thoughts. I recognized that, whatever it was evidently something that he wasn't 100% comfortable talking about. But I also thought that he'd open up a bit more and act in the heat of the moment once we'd finally made it to the bedroom. But then, we didn't make it to the bedroom, and by then I was starting to believe that he was deliberately avoiding any kind of physical intimacy. Obviously, this bothered me quite a bit. I liked him and I wanted him to like me, but then if we weren't sleeping together, that was probably going to be an issue. Another week or two went by before I sat Mark down and told him we needed to talk. Once again, I brought up the issue of us being intimate, and once again, he might as well have just turned to stone. He seemed either unwilling or unable to voice his needs to me, and it took another round of gentle encouragement to even try. But then finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he told me what he wanted. And what he wanted was for me to dress up for him. Now, before I tell you what Mark wanted me to dress up as, there's something you need to know about me. And honestly, I think a lot of you will probably put 2 and 2 together by the time I'm finished explaining. I've always looked a lot younger than I really am. I guess I hit 16 and just kind of stopped growing. It's not just that I'm short either, and at 4'11" I am very short. I have a baby face too, maybe the mother of all baby faces, meaning that although I was in my late 20s at the time I was dating Mark, I could have probably passed for a high school freshman on a no-makeup gym day. It was a real problem around the time that I started drinking, but then the older I got, the more it worked to my advantage. Looking 14 at 21 honestly sucked, but looking 21 at 30, there was worse things to deal with, I guess. But then that second time, I sat down with Mark and finally got him to confess that he wanted to dress me up. I realized that there was another downside to looking as young as I did, one that was unforeseen and unencountered right up until that moment. Mark told me that he wanted me to dress up for him, and at first, I figured he wanted me to dress as something cute, or maybe even one of the cosplays that I'd shown him pictures of. But Mark didn't want that. He wanted something different. And when, at long last, the words finally left his lips, I was so horrified that I must have visibly pulled back. Mark said he wanted me to dress young, very young. And when I asked him what exactly he meant by that, he told me how, before we slept together, he wanted me to dress up like a little girl. Those were the words he used. But what I heard, because let's be honest, this is what he was really asking me, was that he wanted me to dress up as a child. And I was stunned. I thought he was going to ask me, I don't know, wear stockings or go blindfolded or something. So, when he finally told me what he wanted, and it was that, I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't know what to say, so I just didn't say anything, and my silence prompted Mark to backpedal as he tried to explain away what he just said to me. He knew it was wrong. He knew it was ugly, and that's why it had taken him so long to say it. But I think without a doubt the worst thing was realizing why he'd chosen me as his prospective girlfriend. Me, who looked no older than 17 on a gym day, like I said, and me, who looked so young that I had to dress ultra-professional to be taken remotely seriously at work, even though on any given day I could be the most experienced person working on a set. That was one of the huge downsides to being blessed with such youthful looks, one I really hated. Just not nearly as much as I hated realizing that there was another downside too. That creeps like Mark were going to want to use me to satisfy some unspeakable urge. I walked out of Mark's apartment not long after telling me that he wanted me to dress up as a child in the bedroom for him. He kept trying to call me as I made my way home, and I remember just putting my phone on airplane mode, feeling like I couldn't even see his name without wanting to throw up. Once I was home and I gathered my thoughts, I sent him a text saying that I was deleting his number and that he should lose mine too. Any further attempts to reach out to me would be considered unwanted harassment, and I'd be making a note of them prior to filing a police report. And after that, his calls and texts suddenly stopped, and I'm thankful to have never heard from him again. I wish I could tell you that I never allowed Mark a single second of thought time from there on out, but as you can tell, that's not true at all. I've actually thought about him quite a bit, and I've told this story to quite a few people. I guess it's because whenever the subject of child abuse or exploitation comes up, either in a movie or on the news or a TV show, I can't help but think of Mark. Part of me hopes that he's gone to therapy or something, anything to help him deal with the disgusting desire that he confessed to me that night. But another part of me thinks it's just a matter of time before I see Mark's face in the news, having been arrested for one of the worst crimes I could possibly conceive of.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
On the morning of Tuesday, September 20th of 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico left her home in Belen, New Mexico to begin her daily bike ride along the New Mexico State Road. Cycling was her favorite form of exercise, and she chose a route she'd ridden every morning, without fail, for years by that point, and was often accompanied by her mother, Patty Dole. However, in recent weeks, Patty had ceased to join her daughter in her daily rides after one particularly frightening incident in which she believed the pair had been stalked by an angry motorist. Patty had implored her daughter to stop cycling at that time in the morning, or to at least take a different route, but her daughter rejected the idea and said her mother was overreacting when it was suggested that she carry mace. That Tuesday morning, Tara had noticed one of her hamstrings feeling a little tight. She mentioned this to her mother and added that if she wasn't home by 12, it was because she was probably injured, in which case her mother was to drive down the regular route to give her and her bike a ride back. We can also assume that Tara desperately wanted to be back around that time, as she had a date at around 12:30 and wanted time to get ready. And indeed, when Tara failed to return by noon, Patty drove down their usual cycling route, but couldn't locate her daughter. But what she did find were the broken pieces of what was unmistakably Tara's Sony Walkman. Patty immediately contacted the police, suggesting the broken pieces might represent some kind of trail for them to follow. Police did indeed follow the trail of broken plastic, but to no avail. Several witnesses were interviewed, each saying they had seen Tara riding her bike along the state road. One or two even added that they had noticed a light-colored pickup truck following closely behind her, but hadn't really thought anything of it at the time. Police cast a wide net in the search that followed, but not a single trace of Tara or her bicycle could be found. It was as if though she'd ridden into a black hole, like she just dropped off the face of the earth. Yet little did they know, they would be seeing Tara again. Only the circumstances in which they'd see her would be truly terrifying. On the evening of June 15th, 1989, a woman in Port St. Joe, Florida, stopped at a local convenience store. She pulled into a free parking space next to a large white windowless Toyota cargo van, and as she got out, noted that it was being driven by a mustachioed Caucasian man who appeared to be in his 30s. She then walked into the store, picked up a few choice items, then headed back out to her vehicle. The Toyota cargo van was gone, but lying in the empty parking spot was a small square Polaroid photograph. At first glance, the picture appeared to be of two people lying among some bedding, but on further inspection, the contents of the photograph made the woman's blood run cold. It showed a young boy of maybe only 7 or 8, along with a young woman in her late teens. Each appeared to have their wrists bound behind their backs with a strip of duct tape covering each of their mouths. She immediately contacted local law enforcement, who in turn set up roadblocks to intercept the vehicle. But the van was never found, and the driver never identified. Representatives from the Polaroid company offered to analyze the picture before informing police that the picture could have been taken no earlier than May of 1989, as the kind of material used to print the photo was not available until then. The Polaroid's discovery sparked a frenzy of interest in the national media, and Patty Dole was contacted by friends who believed the gagged girl looked an awful lot like Tara. The FBI then brought the photograph to Patty, who was then on convinced that the girl in the picture was her missing daughter. She cited the scar on the bound girl's leg, one that was identical to one Tara had received as a result of a car accident. Patty also noticed that a paperback copy of V.C. Andrews' novel My Sweet Adrena can be seen lying next to the girl, a book that just so happened to be Tara's all-time favorite. The United Kingdom's Scotland Yard analyzed the photo and conclusively agreed that the woman in the picture was indeed Tara, but a follow-up analysis by the Los Alamos National Laboratory disagreed, citing differences in the girl's facial structure. However, when the FBI conducted a third analysis of the photo, the results were inconclusive. They were 75% sure it was her, just enough to officially declare it, as it might muddy or misdirect any potential investigation. The other young person in the picture was thought to be young Michael Henley, also of New Mexico, who had disappeared just a few months before Tara had. Michael's mother said that she too was almost certain that it was her young son tied up in the Polaroid, yet this is considered highly unlikely as Michael's remains were discovered in June 1990 in the Zuni Mountains, less than 10 miles from the family's campsite he vanished from. Police believe that Michael simply wandered off and subsequently died of exposure, and if that were the case, there was no way the child in the van could be him. 2 other possible Polaroid photographs of Tara had surfaced in the years since her disappearance, the first being discovered near a construction site in the small town of Montecito, California. It is a blurry photo of a girl's face, with tape covering her mouth and light blue striped fabric behind her. Many have noted the blatant similarities between the fabric to that on the pillow in the Toyota van photo. It was taken on film that was not available until June 1989. The second Polaroid depicts a woman loosely bound in gauze. Her eyes are covered with yet more gauze and large black frame glasses, and she's standing with a male passenger beside her on an abandoned Amtrak train. The film used was not available until February 1990. Calico's mother believed the first was definitely Tara, with her sister saying that the two girls had a striking, uncalming resemblance. As for me, I will not rule them out, but keep in mind our family has had to identify many other photographs, and all but those three were ruled out. Many years went by without any arrests or developments in the case. Then, in 2008, rumors spread that two teenage boys had accidentally hit Calico with a truck, panicked, and subsequently killed her, covering up their misdeeds by disposing of her corpse somewhere it'd never be found. But this was dismissed as pure hearsay, and the police officer who made the comment was publicly chastised by Tara's stepfather for them. 5 more years went by, and we could be forgiven for thinking that Tara's case would remain a cold one. But in 2013, the FBI announced that they had set up a 6-person task force that was to be charged with reinvestigating Tara's abduction, citing the discovery of new evidence. Then in 2019, the FBI followed up their announcement by offering a reward of up to $20,000 for precise details leading to the identification or location of Tara Lee Calico, and information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for her disappearance. So it seems the FBI are creeping ever closer to finding the person responsible for Tara's death or abduction, and that even if 30 years goes by, the powers that be will not simply allow people to go missing without doing something about it. But the question remains, was it really a freak car accident that killed Tara? One in which a terrified teen found he couldn't face the consequences? Or was Tara kidnapped by someone with much more nefarious intentions? Someone who wanted to show off his monstrous labors by displaying his quarry, bound and gagged, his playthings until he saw fit to dispose of them. But at the end of the day, we're only left to wonder in horror at Tara's fate at the hands of her captor, left only to pray that the same thing doesn't happen to us or any of our loved ones.
This happened when my sister and I were about 6 and 8. We are now 43 and 45, me being the eldest. And it is something that still haunts us occasionally. We had an amazing municipal swimming pool in our neighborhood. South Africa summers in Johannesburg are hot and long, so the swimming pool was the ultimate destination. Joe was the adult that was always at the pool. He would swim lengths, practice diving, and tickle our feet under the water. Just typing this makes me feel nauseous. To this day, I still have issues with my feet being wet. Specifically, I am unable to leave cream on my feet. The sliminess makes me claustrophobic. I only realized the connection last year. Whenever we would sit on the edge of the pool with our feet hanging in, he would swim past all of us and tickle all our feet in a row. Now, I can't remember all the details, but someone playfully screamed, "Oh no, Joe!" And Joe did it again and sang, "Oh no, Joe, not again, Joe." We laughed as kids do. Then he tickled our feet again and made us sing his new song. "Oh no, Joe, not again, Joe." It became a game. He would grab us under the water and we would sing. It went from feet tickling to chasing us and grabbing our waists under the water. The song never went away. One day at the pool, Joe told us that he had this amazing farm just out of town, and he would like to take us to see his animals, his mealies, which is corn, and his own swimming pool. It sounded like heaven to all of us. He was talking to several children, boys and girls, and he told us to be at the swimming pool on Saturday, but not to tell our parents. We will go in his car. As soon as we got home, though, we told our dad everything as we were so excited, and the farm sounded amazing. Our dad said absolutely not and asked who this Joe was anyway. We told him that he was our friend at the pool and he plays with our feet and chases us around the pool. My dad said that actually maybe we could go, and he wanted to meet Joe first. Yay! The next day we went to the pool, and we told Joe that we could go with him, but our dad wanted to meet him first. Joe was upset that we told our dad, but we said not to worry, our dad's cool. So Joe walked home with us. We only live about 5 blocks from the pool and came to meet our dad. Now, Joe is about 5'6", and my dad is 6'7", the personification of a gentle giant. My dad was very polite to Joe and asked him loads of questions about the farm. Where is it exactly? How many kids are going? Has he spoken to other parents? Joe was cool as a cucumber. He answered the question smoothly and confidently, and my dad ended by saying to Joe that he looked forward to seeing him at his farm on Saturday. I think we will have a great time. I'll bring my girls though, and we will meet you there. Now the next part is a bit of a blur to me. I'm not sure how we ended up driving in convoy with about 3 other dads and their kids from the pool, but it was so exciting. My dad had the map book leading the convoy to the best farm in the world. We drove about an hour out of town when we arrived at a derelict farmhouse. No animals, no mallees, no swimming pools, just this run-down, isolated, scary-looking farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. I remember being really confused. My dad must have read the map book wrong. All the dads then huddled together, and we had no idea what they were saying, but they were really angry. We were angry too, as we were obviously lost, and it was the dad's fault. Everyone got back in their cars, and I started screaming at my dad about how he'd deliberately gotten us lost because he doesn't like Joe, and he didn't want us to have fun. My dad was silent and pensive, and after my tantrum, he said to my sister and I in a very calm, deep voice, "Joe is a bad man. He was going to hurt all of you. He is the bad man your mom is always warning you about. My mom is obsessed with true crime. There is no farm, and I'm so happy you girls told me what was going on because something bad could have happened to you." His strong voice broke in the last word. The gravity of his tone and the break in his voice made my sister and I realize immediately that he was right, and we were in danger. We cried and apologized, and he made us promise to tell him if we ever saw Joe again. Joe stayed away from the pool for about a month, but as soon as we saw him come through the gate, we quickly got dressed and ran home. When my dad came home from golf, we told him Joe was at the pool again. Then the next day we went to the pool with our dad. We were swimming, and my dad was sitting on one of the benches to the side. In walks Joe. He came to the edge of the pool and was calling to us. We refused to go to the edge, and he was getting frustrated. My dad then got up and walked over to him. "Hey buddy, can I have a chat with you outside real quick?" Joe physically shrunk. My dad had his hand on Joe's shoulder and was guiding him out to the pool. I can only imagine what my dad did and said to him. My dad is a gentleman, but don't mess with his girls. Joe was never seen again at our swimming pool.
I'm going to take you back a few years to when I was working at McDonald's. For context at the time, I was a 16-year-old female. Now at the McDonald's I worked at, when you are on headset, you answer people at the drive-thru. You are normally required to be at the first window to also take payment. My job position was customer care manager at the time, so my job was to be on the front desk, but 99% of the time, they required me to be behind tills. So I was having a normal day, working a long shift, but having a normal work day. I happened to be on headset, and first window that day too. My headset buzzes, letting me know there's someone at my drive-thru lane. I go through to the first window to answer my customer, and this is how the conversation ensued. "Hello, welcome to McDonald's, what can I get you?" Oh wow, you got a beautiful voice. His voice was grunty and husky sounding, not off-putting. We have all sorts of customers come through McDonald's every day, so it didn't give me the creeps or anything. Thank you, sir, how very flattering. What can I get you? I haven't decided yet. There's a long pause here. Can I come to the first window to decide? I want to see who I'm talking to. Now, we weren't very busy at this point. The creeper hadn't actually creeped me out. I mean, all he'd done was pay me a compliment, and we quite often had people complaining that they preferred face-to-face contact, so this certainly wasn't out of the blue or unusual. Yeah, sure, sir, that's fine. Wow, you're as beautiful as you sound. Thank you, sir. Have you decided what you're going to order? Are you an option? I laughed nervously at this. It was my first job, and I wasn't the rude kind of person where someone was paying me a compliment. I must also point out this guy must have been in at least his 60s. I remember he had one lazy eye that looked to the left, painfully awful teeth, and patchy dark brown hair. At this point, I was a little bit uncomfortable, but was still more than willing to take his order. I'll have a cheeseburger. Okay, sir, that'll be 99p. Are you paying cash or card? Without answering my question, he started asking me where I'm from, how old I was, etc. But it wasn't until his last question that I got super weirded out. What time do you finish work? 7:30, why? I didn't actually finish at 7:30, but 7:30 was the first number that came into my head when I blurted it out. I finished at 8 and would probably do some overtime too, but I wasn't about to let him know that. I can meet you if you want. I can pick you up outside and we can go somewhere. All the while he's saying this, he has this horrendous grin on his face and keeps winking at me. I'm really sorry, sir. I'm not allowed to meet customers outside of work. It's against employee policy. This was utter bull, but I needed him to leave me alone, and he carries on being insistent, but not getting the picture, and I cut the conversation short. Anyway, sir, sorry to be rude, but can I have the 99p for your cheeseburger? Ah, yes, sorry. See you at 7:30. Off he drove to the next window, and I was gobsmacked. I'd already said I wasn't going to see him. I was a little bit shocked, but was not going over there to give him the satisfaction of talking to me again. My coworker came to me and said, "Ew, that guy had a major crush on you. I wanted your number, but I didn't give it to him. He's old enough to be your dad, if not older." Anyway, I explained exactly what happened and how uncomfortable it made me. 7:30 came around and my coworker spooked. The creeper was actually waiting in the car park for me, just like he said he would. He sat halfway down the car park, and you could see him just staring in. Our car park wasn't very big. It only had 4 rows of parking spaces, so he wasn't that far away, and would have clocked me the minute I walked out the door. At this point, I'm freaking out, and head to the back of the store where hopefully he can't see me. I had to stay in the back of the store for 40 minutes before we knew it was safe to come out. Fast forward a week and Creeper is back on drive-thru, and guess who's back on headset at window 1? Me. I heard his voice and recognized it straight away. I was hoping I'd hear your voice again. Why didn't you meet me the other day? 1 second, sir. I'll be with you in 1 second. I immediately handed my headset to my manager and gave him a quick briefing of the situation. He gladly took the headset and dealt with the customer from start to finish. When my manager came back to me to let me know he'd gone, he said the creeper had been asking my name, my address, and my surname. My manager said he was the most creepiest guy he'd ever met, and I was never to have anything to do with him again. If he came back to work while I was there afterwards, my manager would have to head me to the back room while he dealt with him. He still asked about me every time. So to the creepy McDonald's guy, let's never meet again.